class, and welcome back to the Nerd Academy Podcast. Hosted by our headmaster, Jared Bachman-Stubbs, you can find all of us here at the Nerd Academy Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on our website at www.thenerdacademypodcast.com. Our shows, the Nerd Academy Podcast, Knights of the Nerd Republic, and Campus Life are released weekly at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, wherever you listen to podcasts. And don't forget, check out our Patreon, where every donation helps to keep the lights on.
Good morning, class, and welcome back to the Nerd Academy Podcast. I am your host and headmaster, Jared Bachman-Stubbs. And on the horn this week, we have Black Leader Travis Grossman.
That was loud.
That one was really loud. It really peaked.
Proud of you, Dr. Pepper.
Yeah, you're running me dry on my cherry cola. I'm getting kind of angry with you.
I'll restock you.
Oh, you better. We have... I don't want to say it's a light week. It's going to be a top-heavy week.
Yeah, I mean, like, we only have 4 stories. One of them we added literally 20 seconds ago.
Yeah, it was one of those, like, it happened so early last week that I almost forgot about it. Mm-hmm. But talking about our first story jogged my memory. Like I said, it's going to be top-heavy, nowhere near as top-heavy as this week's Knights of the Nerd Republic, where I'm pretty sure I spent a collective 3 minutes on the other 2 stories, and Pete and Jerry bared with us on the Doomcock story.
The Fear of Vagina story.
A Fear of Vagina. I don't often go back and listen to shows. However, after Rural Farm Boy's very sweet first public Knights of the Nerd Republic shout out, I felt the urge to go back and listen. And my God, you, Jerry, and Pete are some of the funniest men I know.
Don't count yourself out of that.
Well, I don't know me.
Fair enough. I know you, and you were up there with us.
Oh, I appreciate your praise, and if it's coming from you, I'll believe it. But yeah, in the vein of bullshit stories that I'm kind of embarrassed we're talking about, Travis, would you just like to read the headline as I have it written in the show notes?
The BS rumors don't stop for us. They sure don't.
You know, it's been a bad week when I have a We Got This Covered article in the show notes.
Yeah.
Up top, Ben Affleck is not Batman anymore. However,
shocking news.
Shocking news. We haven't known this for like a year and a half now. Again, we're going to read directly from the We Got This Covered article, and then we're going to come back to reality. With the news that Zack Snyder's Justice League is on its way and Michael Keaton is in talks to return as Batman in the DCEU, it feels like DC's past is colliding with its present. Likewise, evidence is building that Ben Affleck, once thought to be done as the Dark Knight, is due to return to the franchise and don the Batsuit once again. In fact, according to the latest intel, nice citing of sources, from sources close to my rectum, he's already signed a contract and an official announcement is imminent. The Cultured Nerd's Taylor Murphy, who already reported that Affleck had closed the deal, recently elaborated on what his sources have told him. Murphy claims that Affleck's all set to return as Batman, and Warner Brothers will come clean with the news at some point over the next 2 months, either during DC Fandom, which will be August 22nd, and expect a special recap episode of that, or at Justice Con on July 25th, which I'm assuming is going to be digital, I hope. Direct
Please.
Quote. Yeah. Direct quote, Ben has indeed signed a new contract and is coming back. The official announcement is expected to happen either at DC Fandom or during Justice Con. One of the two. We're going to get that announcement, but it's going to happen before September. We're going to get the official announcement, and we are going to get the Snyderverse Batman returning. Apparently, Affleck could make the return to make his version of the Batman, which he was due to star in, co-write, and direct before he stepped away from the project. It's said that Joe Manganiello will return as Deathstroke, a.k.a. Slade Wilson, and as would Jared Leto as the Joker.
Ha!
Not fucking happening. Murphy says that WB releasing the Snyder Cut and making amends with Zack Snyder was what convinced him to return. Not so long ago, fans might have dismissed these kinds of stories, but it's clear that Warner Brothers wants to capitalize on the popularity of the previous versions of their iconic characters, as well as moving forward with new portrayals, like Robert Pattinson. So if we can trust this information, then it seems Affleck enthusiasts will be getting some very exciting news over the next few weeks.
Except they won't.
Okay. So, up top, elephant in the room. You, me, 99% of people who cover comic book movie news dismiss the Snyder Cut out of hand.
Correct.
And we were wrong.
I would go to say that we were wrong initially. Or we were right initially.
Yeah.
And then over time, all of that build-up actually built up behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Right. So, do you want my honest take on this?
Yes.
Because I think there is, like, some weird telephone game nonsense happening.
Okay.
I think, because we've talked about before how people might be coming back to do voice work.
Yes.
That would involve paperwork and contracts needing signed for extra work being done on the film. If they needed Affleck to come back and do voice work, maybe there's paperwork involved. Maybe he does have to come back and give a few extra line reads. Someone gets wind of that, only listens to the beginning of there was paperwork signed by Ben Affleck and Warner Brothers, and now runs this nonsense story.
That he's back as Batman.
Yeah.
Now,
That's my, like, I want to give them the benefit of the doubt take.
Yeah, and here's my thing, and I'm going to play devil's advocate on this story very briefly here. There are two previous events in comic book moviedom that I think change the nature of this story, that if you don't address them, you're being willfully ignorant. And that is the success of Spider-Verse, and that is the Snyder Cut being announced officially.
Mm-hmm.
With Spider-Verse, it was finally proved that for the most part, audiences understand multiple iterations of a character kicking around at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
People were clear that none of the Spider-Men in Spider-Verse were meant to be Tom Holland's Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
And the Snyder Cut, as far as I'm concerned, has put this idea in my head that Warner Brothers is willing to do anything.
Which they kind of have to be at this point to recover
to
from.
Really, just really shoot from the hip. Now, that said, Affleck made it no secret that all of the constant Batman fuckery just drained him.
Mm-hmm.
That's my biggest apprehension about really believing this. And I would be very surprised if WB is going to go full send on this kind of project that is also going to cost millions upon millions.
Mm-hmm.
Just looking at what was in that article alone. We're signing Affleck back, we're signing Manganiello back, and we're signing Leto back.
There's
right there, you're looking at a multi-million-dollar deal just to have all of them back in the same room.
And the idea that then he would go on to make a different solo Batman movie that he was going to write and produce originally. Like that's where it goes from there's some believability in what's happening here, again, because the Snyder Cut's going to require some extra stuff and maybe they need to call him in.
Yeah.
That it goes from that to obviously this is nonsense because there's no goddamn way that they're ever going to touch Jared Leto again. There's no way that they would, even if Affleck wanted to. If he wanted to, he wouldn't have dropped in the first place. But if he wanted to, they probably wouldn't let him make a solo movie. Just, there's way too much nonsense in the...
Yeah. I have a hard time believing all of that is at play. You know, there were rumors and leaks and swirlings around what Ben Affleck's The Batman would have been.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of people kind of talked about it as a Arkham Asylum style story, that it was going to be him fighting for his life trapped inside the Rogues Gallery, basically.
Yeah.
Which, by the looks of what we're getting in Matt Reeves and Robert Pattinson's The Batman, it looks to be kind of more of an open air Gotham. You know, he doesn't look like he's trapped inside of the asylum, you know.
But could probably have a brief headline that we almost missed. Stargirl just got renewed for season 2.
Oh, cool. I didn't see that.
I still haven't watched it.
I'm glad it got renewed.
Yeah.
I've heard good things.
Anyway, back to bullshit.
Back to bullshit. Like, again, there's elements of this story that again, anything could happen.
Yeah, that's kind of...
And that's where I'm at, and that's why I have such a hard time, you know, handling these DC stories now, is that, like, you know, every couple months we'd have Snyder Cut is imminent, Snyder Cut is imminent, Snyder Cut is imminent, crickets, back to brochures and bus ads. Until it happened.
Because, like, with this kind of story, what happens when Jason Momoa puts up an Instagram post of him and Ben Affleck? So happy to have you back, buddy. Ready to give, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
You know? Like, that's going to happen. Like, I don't... Now that we've publicly said that we know this story is bullshit, tomorrow it's going to be like Momoa puts up a post, Ben Affleck might put up, like, an official statement that's not confirming it but not denying it. Who knows, man?
Yeah, that's my biggest thing, is that as somebody who does really like Ben Affleck's portrayal of Bruce Wayne,
I do as well.
I've offered several caveats to that, both Affleck's own behavior in his personal life, that's one of those, you know, kind of dampers on things, and certain behaviors that are tied to him. You know, there's that makes it a little bit difficult. There's the way Bruce is written. In BVS, you know, I've said before, even though I like Batman v Superman, I like it despite its flaws. You know, the same Batman of The Dark Knight Returns isn't the same Batman who founds the Justice League.
Right.
You know, that there's a cognitive dissonance there that makes that interpretation of the character really hard to digest. However, the energy he brings to the role, his intensity, the physicality of it all, you know...
Well, that's the other thing, is, like, again, this is trying to make me believe that he's going to be, like, physically playing Batman again, which means he has to get back in fucking superhero shape, which I guarantee he never wants to do again in his goddamn life. Because that's what, like, most people get. Either they're in it for the long haul and they already looked good, and it's like, okay, I can kind of let this slip and keep it back up for the next shoot. But with someone like Affleck, where that was like a one-shot deal, right? I can't imagine him ever. And
obviously, no body shaming here at all.
No, of course not.
And what I'm gonna say, and again, this is coming from a bigger guy who, go back a few weeks worth of episodes, we had our whole conversation about how much I love what Robert Pattinson's saying about unrealistic body standards for at least guys in Hollywood. Affleck was clearly not in the shape he was in Batman v Superman as he was in the Joss Whedon Justice League reshoots. You know, there's the scene where you see the undersuit of the bat suit. And, like, he's kind of like that thick buff. Yeah. Like,
which he already kind of was in BVS, which is how Batman is in Dark Knight Returns. Like, he isn't chiseled, he's thick buff.
Yeah.
But...
Well, I mean, like, in BVS, like, he's a brick shithouse.
Yeah, that's what I mean, is that, like, they really hammed it up for BVS. They made sure to get that shirtless shot of him working out.
Yeah.
Because we always have to have that. We always have to show off the back and the abs, baby.
Yeah.
But...
As the moment where I shamefully put the popcorn bucket down every time.
It's like, I guess I don't need this anymore.
Yeah.
That's
why I'm so glad Bar 9 is, like, right on top of our local AMC. Is it like, well, now that I've seen a shirtless superhero, I'm going to have 8 vodka sodas to forget how shitty this made me feel about myself.
Right. But, yeah, I can't... I can't imagine him ever wanting to do that again, unless like a project came up that he was really passionate about, which he clearly isn't about Batman anymore.
Yeah,
So-
again, but this is one of those situations where like, oh, Zack Snyder's back, so now Ben Affleck's all about it again. Again, anything could happen at this point. You know, I have a hard time boo-hooing any story coming out of DC these days, but I would like to see something happen. It would most definitely be something on HBO Max.
Yeah.
You know, and I also think HBO Max is taking a big gambit in the way it's been handling a lot of things. You know, Disney Plus came locked and loaded with The Mandalorian, you know, Disney's entire back catalog.
Just between Disney movies for your kids, the Avengers stuff for your and Star Wars for your teenagers and adults, and then now they have Hamilton, right?
Yeah, and then Falcon and the Winter Soldier coming by the end of the year. Like, there's a lot of stuff that Disney Plus went in our first year of operation.
We're going to control this world. Like, Disney is now taking over the streaming space.
Yeah. I think, or at the very least, is damn near close to.
Yeah.
You know, especially with the fact that even though they're not directly connected, Disney also has Hulu in their pocket.
Right. Like, when you take a look at something like granted, Disney is bigger than DC. Just as a thing. But when you look at something like DC Universe, they came out swinging for me personally.
Yeah.
Right? Versus Disney Plus, which is now already contending with Hulu and Netflix. Right? And like, I'm not sure that I will have DC Universe next year, not because I don't want it, but because it might not exist.
Well, that's the thing, is they're already showing off those bundles. You know, just roll your DC Universe into your HBO Max.
Which is what's probably going to happen.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie, I considered getting HBO Max just so I have immediate access to X, because it's on there.
Oh, yeah?
And I was like, just so I have it to watch it whenever I want. But besides that, like, again, for me, it would take DC Universe just putting all of its catalog onto HBO Max, at which point it becomes very worth it to me. Until then, I'm pretty indifferent on it, but...
Yeah, and I'm the same way. Well, just this week they added BVS. That's what sparked all of this. Was that Zack Snyder shared that new poster of Batman during the nightmare sequence, where he has like the weird trench coat and the machine gun. And that's what sparked all of this. Is that like these rumors are already circulating, and then Zack Snyder like specifically posted about Batman. And that's how we got here. So I don't want to, I want to say definitively, don't get your hopes up. Because I don't think this is going to happen. It would be cool. It would be interesting. I'd like to see what they do with it. You know, again, as somebody who defends Batman v Superman for what it's worth, and as somebody who ardently defends Jared Leto's Joker. Because I don't think that Jared Leto's Joker is anywhere near as bad as people say it is. I think that there are certain design elements that they went a step too far with, like damaged. Shit like that, back off of it. But I like the idea that if the idea is that the Joker has this metamorphosis that has him represent crime of the era, that, you know, in the 80s, he's a mobster. In the late, you know, aughts, he is a domestic terrorist. And that, you know, in 2016, he's a gangbanger. It's kind of an interesting take. And then that was my thing. It was like, this is an interesting take. And at that point, I was like, you know what? Superman is emo. Batman's a fucking murderer. Wonder Woman pieced out 100 years ago. Fuck it. You know, Joker's a SoundCloud rapper. Fine, I'll go with it. I'm Cole Kushner. Welcome back to Dissect. But yeah, that's where I stand on it. We'll see what happens. I'm not expecting much, but yeah, I said that about the Snyder Cut, and we were wrong. But I can say we were wrong as in everybody in this industry was wrong. So I don't feel too bad about it. Moving on to our next story.
Very tangential.
Very tangential, very DC EU oriented. Now, Travis, you say you haven't kept up with this story very much. What do you know? We're talking about Ray Fisher calling out Joss Whedon.
I know. I read the tweet he made. And then I've seen little headlines of so-and-so weighs in on so-and-so says. I didn't click on any articles. You know, I've been working and we've been busy all weekend and whatnot.
You're going to describe this weekend as you being busy.
That's what we're going to call it for now.
That's what we're going to call it for now.
Happy 4th of July this past weekend.
Yes.
I hope you all had a better time than I did.
I feel like you had a really good time until you did.
Until the very end, yeah. Tune in to Campus Life to find out what that's about. Also, from one of your weebs here at TNAP, Happy Tatabata in Japan.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Did you get your packs?
Not yet. The banner comes out tonight.
Excellent. So, well, happy hunting with that.
Thank you.
I know Galaxy of Heroes goes hog wild on May the 4th sometimes. So I say sometimes because Capital Games has been really inconsistent. Also, fuck you, Capital Games. Give Arnold his account back. Anyway.
But yeah, so I just know that, you know, it is said that he was very disrespectful to Zack Snyder and the work he had put in and was, you know, that kind of stuff. But that's all I know.
Okay. So we're going to jump into this Deadline article, and then we're going to go from here.
Okay.
Justice League star Ray Fisher slams Joss Whedon for, quote, gross and abusive conduct on DC film set. Justice League Cyborg star Ray Fisher has spoken out against that flick's fill-in director Joss Whedon this morning at the time of the writing of this article, saying Joss Whedon's on-set treatment of the cast and crew of Justice League was gross, abusive, and unprofessional, and completely unacceptable. He was enabled in many ways by Jeff Johns and John Berg. Accountability over entertainment. Fisher disclosed no specific details other than what was in his tweets. His tweet this morning was preceded by a video of him from 2017 Comic-Con in which he said Joss is a great guy and Zach picked a good person to come in and finish up for him. Fisher tweeted today, I'd like to take a moment and forcefully retract every bit of this statement. Now, I'm going to stop there for a second. I saw the I want to retract every bit of that statement before, and I'm pretty sure he tweeted that prior to actually talking about Joss Whedon's behavior. When I read that, and I tweeted about it, I read that and I thought it was another instance of Zack Snyder's like ardent and loyal base just kind of flipping Joss Whedon the bird.
Yeah.
And my own biases up front, I think the first two I love all the Avengers movies. Like I've said before, I like ensemble stuff. The Avengers movies always feel like a comic book come to life. I think Avengers, and even more so Age of Ultron, are perfect comic book movies. I love them both. Age of Ultron, I like Age of Ultron just as much, if not slightly less than Infinity War. Just so everybody has a gauge for me on that. And like I've said before, the Buffyverse and Angel specifically was my first favorite TV show and remains my favorite TV show of all time. So hearing anything not great about Joss Whedon is immediately a huge disappointment for me. You know, it's always difficult hearing disappointing things about artists whom you respect and love the work of, because you have that moment where you have to decide, okay, is it possible for me to separate the art from the artist, or is this forever tainted? Can I not watch this anymore? Is it immoral for me to engage in this content anymore and kind of in a very quiet way endorse the behavior of this individual? I've seen talk going around that one of the main things was that there was a lot of screaming on set. That, like you said, he was disparaging Snyder's work. In particular, I've seen people suggesting and the comments floating around that the bit where Barry Allen ends up on top of Wonder Woman, that was a moment that apparently that was Gal Gadot's stand-in that scene. which is normal. Like most of
Yeah.
Infinity War, Benedict Cumberbatch isn't there.
Right.
You know, like most of that was a stand-in. Not a lot of people know that, but a lot of people said that Gal Gadot's stand-in, whose name escapes me, was kind of like, I don't know about this scene. Not kind of into it. It's kind of weird. I think it's 2016, 2017. I feel like we're past the need for body humor like this, and I agree with that. And I groaned during that scene. It's gratuitous, and I can see that. And that he was pushy about that scene specifically. Again, there's a whole lot of back and forth with this. John Berg and Jeff Johns have both said that there was no enabling of any behavior. These are one of those situations where I really want to see more people talk about this.
Yes.
You know, Ray Fisher does not strike me as the type of person to just kind of shoot from the hip
And just say this just cause.
exactly,
Right.
You know, and when he originally tweeted that, I would like to retract every bit of this statement. I thought that was just more, I like Zack Snyder more than Joss Whedon. Fuck you, Joss Whedon. And I was like, this is immature. Like, please
Right.
grow up. And I take that back because I didn't realize that was coming
Yeah.
from a place of
You didn't
you
you
were
didn't
a
have context.
you're a shit person to work with. I thought it was just fuck you and Buffy the Vampire Slayer kind of thing.
Right.
And that's unfortunate. And I want to see more of what everybody has to say. Again,
I want to hear more from the Justice League cast.
yes,
In particular. I also want to hear from people on the Avengers cast. Right? I want to in similar way to with obviously these are not the same situation, but what happened with James Gunn. Right?
I see what you're going
Where
for.
that situation was so fueled by the rest of the cast of movies he had worked on like recently going, this is not who this man is anymore. And you can't hold him to this when he has grown so much. I want to see I would like to see that because again, I also like Joss Whedon and I wish, he wasn't an asshole, but if he's an asshole, he's an asshole. But like if something comes up where like he was this way on Justice League because not that it would be excusable, but they're on a time constraint, a budget constraint. He's under a lot of stress. Everyone's under a lot of stress, and maybe that just put a lot of tension in the room, right? At least then we have context versus he's just an asshole to work with in general.
Yeah.
Right? Like having that overall context helps understand the situation better.
And from what I understand, he was not thrilled during the production of Age of Ultron. And like
I remember hearing about this too.
And again, none of this is excuse. The excuse is the behavior.
I already said it, but I want to say it again.
Yeah.
I don't want it to sound like, well, if it comes out that the time constraint and budget constraint, whatever, was the reason he was such an asshole, well, then it's totally excusable.
Yeah.
It's not, but...
And especially that, in looking into this, I've seen that there are also sexual misconduct rumors floating around out there. Mm-hmm. Like, this is the moment where, like, okay, Joss Whedon, you are on notice that, like, some real details need to come out here for your name to be cleared. That said, it would not surprise me that him kind of being burnt out on comic book movies after Ultron burnt him out. But again, like not like any of this behavior I'm seeing that is being claimed is excused by any of that. These are one of those situations where you can kind of connect the dots maybe and go, okay, I see how we got here. I also want to say that I think it is incredibly disappointing that if Jeff Johns allowed any of this to happen, that absolutely breaks my fucking heart. Mm-hmm. Like I want actual conversations to be had because I really, really badly want to see Whedon and Jeff Johns clear their names here, or for there to be some form of public acknowledgement of responsibility, because Jeff Johns is a legend in comic books. Mm-hmm. This is the dude that made Green Lantern cool. No, like this is unacceptable behavior from all of them. I'm just really disappointed and upset.
Yeah, that's kind of how I've come away from it too.
Like I said, Joss Whedon, in my opinion, has told some of my favorite stories of all time. You know, between all 5 seasons of Angel and Avengers and Age of Ultron, and I'm pretty sure he did Firefly / Serenity. And even though that's not a fandom I'm in, I know a whole lot of people who are. So there's a lot of people who watched somebody who created their favorite work really drop the ball, you know, and it's this immediately followed up by J.K. Rowling that, you know, just fucking do better. You know, you don't get to have an influence over everybody's childhood and art consumption and then fuck up this hard. Get it together. And I think Ray Fisher's mantra of accountability over entertainment, I think that is very apropos. Mm-hmm. And I respect him immensely for taking that specific stance. Not long before this, from what I understand, he's been very active on Twitch.
Oh.
However, he pulled away from Twitch streaming and said, you know, accountability over entertainment. You know, I don't log on to Twitch without having the N slur thrown at me left and right. Handle your business in your home, then I'll come back. Until then, accountability over entertainment. This man's integrity stands for itself. You know, like, I do not question Ray Fisher's motives whatsoever.
Yeah.
You know, the only time that I kind of was like, okay, this is a bit much was when I thought this was more just fuck you, fuck you, Joss Whedon, I like Zack Snyder. Clearly that's not the case here. And I want nothing more than to see all of this in its finest details. So that we can get to the bottom of it. Until then, I think it's a really good thing that Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel just showed up one day. I think it's really cool that those movies and the first 2 Avengers movies
just exist.
Just came into existence somehow.
Yeah, just like how the Harry Potter books didn't, like, they just kind of showed up written.
Yeah.
Every couple years, another one would pop up. It was very strange.
Yeah, every couple years, and then those movies, and then I heard that bitch turf J.K. Rowling wrote Fantastic Beasts and the Crimes of Grindelwald.
Such awful fan fiction too. I just can't. I still haven't seen Crimes of Grindelwald. I just don't want to. I can't.
Like I've said before, like, the only thing that will, like, that you have a chance of being distracted by the shitty plot is the fact that there's not a bad performance in the room. Like, it's kind of like The Rise of Skywalker, where, like, the only thing that will, like, keep your brain from recognizing that this movie makes no fucking sense is the fact that Eddie Redmayne and Johnny Depp and like, everybody is acting the shit out of this movie. That's the only thing. But yeah, like Ray Fisher said, accountability over entertainment, and hats off to you, sir. Travis, did you know there's a Black Widow movie coming out?
Well, I think I heard rumors about it a while ago, but it's been like 55 years since the Great Collapse, and I thought maybe we just kind of dropped that one, but apparently I was wrong, and there is going to be a Black Widow movie.
Yeah, so we have an Empire article here. Black Widow movie will, quote, hand the baton to Florence Pugh, says Kate Shortland, exclusive. Kate Shortland is the director of Black Widow. Pardon me. When cinemas reopen and movie business is able to get back on its feet, the MCU will be ready to propel itself into a long-awaited Phase 4, taking the superhero saga into an exciting post-Endgame world. And the film to kick it all off is Black Widow, Scarlett Johansson's overdue solo adventure, which will launch the franchise into its future by looking back into its past. Speaking with Empire for the upcoming big screen preview issue, director Kate Shortland, I keep wanting to say shorthand, Shortland spoke about the interesting dichotomy hinting that Black Widow is a last hurrah for Johansson. Things are only beginning for Florence Pugh's incoming Yelena. Kevin Feige realized that the audience would expect an origin story, so of course he went in the opposite direction. And we didn't know how great Florence Pugh would be. We knew she would be great, but we didn't know how great. Scarlet is so gracious, like, oh, I'm handing her to the baton, so it's going to propel another female storyline. If it sounds then that Black Widow will tee up more to come from Pugh's Yelena, it will also be a chance for audiences to fully process Natasha's tragic sacrifice on Vormir. In Endgame, the fans were upset that Natasha did not have a funeral, whereas Scarlet, when I spoke to her about it, said Natasha wouldn't have wanted a funeral. She's too private, and anyway, people don't know who she is. So what we did in this film was allow the ending to be the grief that individuals felt, rather than a big public outpouring. I think that's a fitting end for her. And that's the main quote. So, I'm expecting Florence Pugh's Yelena to be the new Black Widow.
Yeah.
I can't remember how to say Yelena's last name in the comics, but I'm pretty sure at one point she's been Black Widow.
That wouldn't surprise me.
So there's a precedent for it. You know, Black Widow, like Spider-Man and Ant-Man. Yeah, that title's changed hands.
Yeah. I don't think there's a single superhero moniker that has only ever had one person behind it. Maybe Static Shock. And I'm not even sure about that.
That would be a fun geek out. Legacy heroes. And then having to fact check one down the road. But regardless, that doesn't surprise me at all. And I'm kind of happy to hear like a soft confirmation of that. What I really like here is talking about Natasha's demise. And talking about, you know, and then a lot of people said, like, you know, why didn't Nat get a funeral? You know, why was, you know, Natasha's death kind of glazed over in Endgame? Yeah. And I like the reasoning here that that's not necessarily something Natasha would have wanted. Yeah,
like her whole focus in that movie is that she has a family now. Or again, I guess. But like she has this group that she
for the first time in a very long time at least.
And so they take their moment to grieve. But they don't need this big public showing. And I think that's enough for like that's what she would want. Especially because, like, in the moment of what's happening, where the movie does halt for a second for them to grieve before they go, she would want us to keep fighting.
Yeah.
Because she would.
Exactly.
And I think what could happen in the Black Widow movie is maybe at the end, because, again, this is a prequel.
Yeah.
So we see maybe her offer, Yelena offer her that role and her turn it down. We cut to maybe Tony's funeral. And she's actually there to talk to them about joining up.
That would be nice. Mm-hmm. I would like that. You know, have you seen the alternate version of Natasha's death?
Yeah, you showed it to me.
Yeah. Where, like, Thanos is about to behead Clint.
Yeah.
I like that version a lot. I'm almost at the point where I'd say I like that version more than what we got in the movie.
I disagree with you, but that's, you know, respectfully disagree.
Yeah. You know, my thing, if they really stick the landing with this, I can live with Natasha being gone. Mm-hmm. You know, I have come to the conclusion, and I don't know if I've said it on the show before, if I've only said it to you guys off the record. You know, the fact that Nat isn't present for the final battle is kind of disappointing. Mm-hmm. I think that you could do and yes, it's a little hoity-toity, you know, love is the strongest form of magic kind of thing. Me personally, if I were in the director's chair, and I will also preface this with, I am nowhere near as good at this as...
You are actually the third... You are Jared Russo? Surprise?
Yes, I've changed my name. I'm actually Jared Russo. I've worked on them with everything. I'm the fifth Beatle. No, and I won't pretend that I am that I am better than the writing team and better than the directing team. However, how I would have handled that scene would have been that a willingness to sacrifice is just as potent as the sacrifice itself.
Disarm versus killing for the Elder Wand. Right?
Yeah. And that, like, you could have had a moment where both Clint and Natasha being willing to die for each other
was enough.
Because there came a point in that situation where it wasn't, I'm going to die for the stone, I'm going to die so you don't die. And because it turns into that fight as to who has to have that moment of sacrifice, I think if you have a moment where they both go for it, not only in a way do you prove, not only in a way do you get to maintain both of their lives and have them both be present for the final battle, you also get to prove Thanos wrong. You know, because at the end of the day, with Infinity War, and I understand that at its core it's meant to be Thanos' story, and, you know, in a realistic sense, bad people can will horrible things to be correct. Because handling things in a very strong-armed, evil way can, I don't want to say fix a problem, but can provide an outcome that is under the guise of a solution.
Right.
And I think so much of Infinity War and the beginning of Endgame makes Thanos right. You know, Steve, from the outset, we don't trade lives. But the closest they come to beating Thanos is killing Vision. And, you know, the hardest decisions require the strongest of wills. And even though Thanos is an abusive monster, his perception of love was enough that him murdering Gamora counted as that sacrificing that which you love. I think it would have been a really great moment for him to be proven wrong, and that we don't trade lives, and we're gonna beat your ass, and only we're gonna beat your ass, we're all gonna beat your ass because we weren't willing to murder each other in the name of beating you. And I think that would have been a really beautiful moment to again, just tell Thanos he's wrong. And maybe not directly, in a sense, but for the audience to see that, no, this is, like, we're capable of doing this. Like, in one of those ways that I really like about The Rise of Skywalker, and just about Star Wars in general, is, and George Lucas gave his explanation as to, like, why the Sith can't be Force ghosts. And he said that to become a Force ghost, it requires the relinquishing of oneself, while the entirety of Sith philosophy is the exaltation of oneself. And it's because the Sith cannot comprehend being a part of something bigger than themselves, that's what keeps them from true immortality. And the closest that any Sith, at least in Legends, ever came were hauntings and, you know, mad science. That was the only way they could ever come close to living forever. But people like Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan and Luke and whatever, they could recognize that the universe is bigger than them and find solace in that. And it proves Sith philosophy wrong. That your obsession with selfishness and power is what's going to ruin you in the end. This is the ultimate contradiction of that. And that's why I like it so much, and I think it's in the same vein. But that's just me. You know, and I understand there, you know, like they said, Natasha's death is very potent, but that's me. And I'll get off my soapbox. Travis, your thoughts?
There's a Black Widow movie coming out?
There's a Black Widow movie coming out.
What the fuck? Yeah, I prefer the version we got in the movie, personally. In a version where one of them has to die.
Yeah.
Where it's, to me, more telling and more impactful that there was no agency, but, like, this was a very willing choice, you know, and not kind of a skirt around, not what you were saying, but in the version where Thanos is attacking, where, like, if I jump now, he's gonna get warped, right? Like,
there's also the slight issue that
they wouldn't know about that.
Natasha has no way of knowing that it results in him teleporting away.
Exactly. So I think it is more impactful if it's just a willing sacrifice. But I like your version a lot too. Yeah, like I said, I could very easily see that, like, the climax of the movie happens. The movie ends with her offering the role of Black Widow to Yelena and her turning it down, and then maybe either we fast forward or we get a post-credit scene of her at the funeral talking to Bruce or Nick or
And by Nick Fury, you mean Telos?
yeah, Taylor, right? Just talking to whoever is the person in charge there now about actually it probably would have to be Nick because he's the only one that would know, right?
No, what?
That there was anyone else who knew about Natasha.
Oh yeah, there's
Because
that.
they mentioned during the grieving scene that does she have any family? No, just us. So they wouldn't know about Yelena.
I think if there's some type of, I think a really cool narrative device would be finding some type of, in case I'm gone note, or some type of will. I would love for her to approach Sam, or Sam approach her. Especially because, and again, this is just me and my own interpretation of things. I feel like Nick Fury, no pun intended, is a little off-world with what he's occupied with and trying to construct what I'm assuming is sword.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I'm very excited to see how it plays out, and I really hope Florence Pugh's fucking fantastic. She's amazing in Midsommar. She's fantastic in Little Women. An amazing actress all around, and if we can get her in the MCU, that's a win in my book. I consider this an absolute win. But yeah, I did the big arms too. You guys couldn't see it. Travis did.
I saw it.
Our last story this week, and this is an interesting one. These are one of those I know the cliff notes of this story, and I know that it's amazing. I've just not gotten the chance to ever sit down and read it.
That's more than I've got.
We are getting an audiobook adaptation of Neil Gaiman's The Sandman. James McAvoy will be performing as Morpheus. Kat Dennings, Andy Serkis, Michael Sheen, Riz Ahmed. There's a lot of people who are all coming in swinging. There's a lot of really good talent in this who are going to be, and as a proud Audible subscription holder, feel free to sponsor us at any time. I'm looking forward to this. I think it's going to be a fun listen, and like I said, stellar cast. So I couldn't be more happy with it. McAvoy and Riz Ahmed specifically. I love the sounds of their voices. I could listen to Riz Ahmed talk for days. Did you know he's also a rapper?
I feel like I did.
Well, on the Hamilton mixtape, Immigrants Get the Job Done. Ironically enough, British Empire Strikes Back. That's him. He has that line, which is fitting.
Yeah,
because he's the pilot. He's the pilot. But yeah, that's all we got for you guys this week. Like I said, later on the news, but we still clocked in at just under an hour. 10
what I
minutes
thought.
short. They're 13 minutes short. Travis, where can the lovely people find you?
They can find me on Twitter and Instagram, being rather inactive given the fact that I was asleep for most of yesterday and the day. Well, not most of the day before, but incapacitated most of the day before.
Not even most of the day before.
Enough of the day before. At Travis Political. Jared.
And before we record Campus Life, I just want to say publicly it wasn't my fault.
Oh no, I would never say it was your fault.
I know you wouldn't. I just, for my own conscience, need to convince myself it wasn't.
Because it wasn't. It's very simple.
Oh, I got looks from Alexis. She very silently, like we had our dyad moment where I could just hear her mentally saying, "You did this."
I think part of that was my fault, though, because I mentioned that you overpoured one drink for me, and it wasn't. I didn't mean it to be man, he really did this one dirty. It was half an extra shot or something.
Yeah.
It was not a lot. And
during that party, I gave everybody a 5 count, which is is a shot. And I will say, when you're doing a mixed drink that has more than one alcoholic type of alcohol in it, you should short pour it. However, I knew nobody was going anywhere and we were fine for the night. So I was like, we're just going to have a little fun and watch Hamilton. So everybody, with the exception of Alexis, who specifically asked for a half pour or for a half count, I gave her 1, 2, 3, killed it. Travis, I verified. I was like, you're staying here, right? He's like, yeah, that's the plan. I was said, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And, you know, which was mostly just to get a cheap laugh. And then he like slid $1 into the waistband of my jogger shorts, which was really funny and kind of hot. But tune in for Campus Life, and where I will be taking zero responsibility for anything that happens.
As you should. As you should.
But yeah, you guys can find me at Dark Jedi 2552 on Twitter and Instagram. And you can find the Nerd Academy podcast on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. You can also check out our website, www.thenerdacademypodcast.com, where, if you're feeling generous, you can chuck in $1 to... I almost did it.
Almost.
Chuck in a couple bucks to our Patreon. Speaking of our Patreon, thank you to our $10 patrons, the Waffle Wizard and Cason Brion. You guys help us get these shows on the airwaves and do what we love doing. And if you are on that Patreon at the $10 tier, along with Waffle Wizard and Cason, you get to hear Campus Life on Thursday. And it's going to be a good one because we get to talk about camping, Hamilton, and future President of the United States, Kanye West. Listen, we had our first president who's in the WWE Hall of Fame.
And now...
And then we'll have our first president with, like, platinum records. Maybe Jay-Z will be his running mate.
Okay, now you're convincing me.
I mean, come on. That would be great. Like, you know, like their campaign song. Like, instead of some, like, you know, like, kind of played out, like, proud to be an American. Like, they walk out into a rally and it's Neighbors in Paris. And it's just that thumping bass line, that ba-ba, 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 ba, ball so hard, motherfuckers. It would be great. It would be fantastic. Do not vote for Kanye West in either earnesty or a joke. Please fucking God, don't do it.
Thank you for saying that out loud.
But also Jay-Z as his running mate would be kind of fantastic. Thank you all for listening. Class dismissed, and your homework is to listen to the Dissect podcast.